Woo! I'm back. Hopefully this time I'm more consistent. I can finally achieve my dream of having 10 subscribers. If anything, I'm late for this review. Polar is a 2019 Netflix original film by Jonah Ackerland based on the graphic novel of the same name created by Victor Santos and starring Mads Mikkelsen as badass big dick assassin Duncan Visla, aka the Black Kaiser. An action film in the same vein as John Wick, though you could say Polar did it first since the source material precedes those films. Unfortunately, unlike John Wick, it sucks and is boring as hell. All the way through. Honestly, it doesn't even start out promising. We get this establishing drone shot of a forest, and then we happen across a mansion, but it's like somebody probably thought, hey, this isn't interesting enough. And they added a CGI bird to fly towards the camera for some reason. And so instead of it being just boring, they made it worse by like making it awkward. And you ask yourself, was that a fucking CGI bird? So anyway, we happen upon a mansion, which happens to be Johnny Knoxville's mansion, where he wakes up from a weekend bender. So then he gets his dick sucked by some assassin chick, and then her teammate, the world's worst elite sniper, snipes him in the back of the shoulder rather than in the back of the head for some reason, just because he sucks. And then the rest of the teammates come out and they start shooting at him, even though their aim is just as bad as the snipers. The killers, they get like graphics on the screen for their name as if they were important. They get killed halfway through the movie like wimps. Spoiler alert, I guess. Facundo's their sniper, but as I mentioned before, he sucks at it. Cindy is just a bimbo slut who sucks dick and fucks. Alexei is a useless fuck with a junkie girlfriend, who, by the way, we don't even get introduced to like until halfway through the movie, and then she just appears out of nowhere, but everybody acts like she's been with them like for the entirety of the film. And this big guy is a big guy, and this bitch is their leader. So anyway, they shoot Johnny Knoxville, who dies with a boner, and then we get introduced to Vivian and Mr. Bloot, who also get graphics on the screen for their names. Mr. Bloot is the owner of this assassin agency, and as it turns out, he wants to kill all of his employees that are about to retire so that he doesn't have to pay them their retirement funds, so that he can keep it for himself, for the agency. And especially because he's in negotiations to actually sell the agency to somebody else. I don't know. It's kind of like a corporate thing, I guess. I don't know if it's supposed to be some sort of commentary. But who's next on the list other than the god of Hitman himself, Duncan Visla? Duncan's trying to settle into the quiet life, living in a cabin in the middle of nowhere in the woods near a small town. But one more job gets him sent to Eastern Europe, where he has to kill some Mexican that has to kill him. And then there's a boring ass shootout, which is so lame that it didn't even register in my mind that it was an action scene until after it was over. So Duncan disguises himself as this maintenance guy who works at the hotel where the Mexican guy is staying, and so he drills a hole or something like that. Somebody got stuck behind a door, but it's actually Duncan's prostitute girlfriend, and he has to drill a hole to get them out or whatever. And so he makes a lot of noise, and the Mexican guy goes out all angry, screaming at him, and he's coked out of his fucking mind, and he goes to confront Duncan. So at that moment, Duncan grabs a nail gun and nails the fat Mexican guy into the wall, Jesus style. And so then the gunfight starts or whatever, and I'm like, am I watching an action scene? So Duncan kills everybody in the room, and he finds some documents which help him figure out that he's being double crossed. And so he goes to question the Mexican guy, who doesn't give him anything. And so after playing with his balls for a little bit, he kills the Mexican guy. It all ties back. AMADS. That's a reference to Casino Royale if y'all didn't get it. I've never seen a subtle action scene before, so if that's what the filmmakers were going for, they succeeded. So then Duncan calls Blood and all this stuff, and he says, pay me my money or else, and this and that. And so then Duncan goes back home and meets his neighbor, Vanessa Hudgens, who is to become his love interest? I don't know. Their relationship in this movie is very confusing. I think the movie wants us to think that she's a potential love interest, but they meet barely like 40 minutes into the movie, which is like almost halfway. They're barely in 5 scenes together, a total of 10 minutes maybe, and I think I'm being generous. He certainly doesn't mind fucking other girls, so who knows. So the dumbasses are tasked with finding Duncan and killing him, and they find him, and they send the slut in to seduce him. It works, and they fuck hard. And in the next scene, it's so stupid. While Duncan and the slut are having sex, the sniper guy accidentally shoots the slut, but doesn't kill her. And so then Cindy starts telling the sniper where Duncan is. And so Duncan figures out, and he grabs a hand axe and throws it at the bimbo's face. And then the rest of the team go into the cabin, and Duncan somehow teleports behind the sniper guy and shoots him in the back of the head. And then he kills the big guy by jumping out of a tree. And then he snipes the shit out of the leader bitch, who I forgot to mention is Blute's girlfriend. He doesn't kill Alexei because he wasn't there. He was out kidnapping Vanessa Hudgens. They figured out he likes her somehow. They saw him buy the gift at the store for her, but he meets the slut right after that. So they never actually saw him interact with Vanessa Hudgens at all. Was there a deleted scene or something? Obviously there is, but the filmmaking is so lazy that I'm inclined to believe that they probably just didn't even bother to film it. Hey boss, how do they know he likes her? I was like, isn't that like a plot hole or something? No, she's a girl, she's a neighbor, he likes her. But how do they know it's even a girl that's living there? Maybe it's just an old fellow that he helps out once in a while. No, they know. They know it's a girl. They live half a mile apart, and she's the only one that's close to him, so they like each other. But you know, what if they've never actually talked? It's a girl. They like each other. It's Vanessa Hudgens. So anyway, after that, Duncan goes and meets an old friend of his, and who ends up betraying him. And so he gets captured, and they bring him to the lair, and they torture him. And I gotta say, the second time around, the torture scene really got to me. Not because it was horrifying to watch, but because that's how I felt when I had to rewatch this movie again. Right off the bat, I'm already learning. Lesson number 1. If you're going to review movies on YouTube, make sure you take notes. Especially if they're for movies that you think are going to be bad, or you're already hating off the bat once you start watching it. Because chances are, you're not going to want to see it again. But being the Black Kaiser, Duncan escapes easily. He becomes one with the darkness and kills everybody in the room. Blute runs off and Duncan runs after him. And so then an overlong action scene starts in the tunnels. Admittedly, this scene actually had potential. It was a little bit more slower, but it was more brutal, and the cinematography made it look dirty and grimy. So he gets out and he limps to a friend's hideout, who heals him and gives him a whole bunch of weapons, pretty much gives him a whole arsenal to fight with. And then he calls up the bad guys and gets tracked on purpose so he can lead them to a warehouse. And then he kills all of those guys, including that memorable fuck Alexei. He shoots Vivian in the back, but he doesn't actually kill her. I don't know why. She might be coming back for a sequel. And then Duncan heads over to Blute's mansion, and the guards see his dick from a mile away, and they run off. leaving Blute to fend for himself. So then he grabs an axe and just cuts off Blute's head and throws it out the window, and he rescues Vanessa Hudgens. So then Duncan takes her back to her cabin, where it is revealed that she's the little girl that he almost killed once by accident. He killed the rest of her family. He explains to her that it was just bad intel, and it was actually her dad that was the target. And it's revealed that he's been practically raising her through donations through a ghost charity or something like that. And now that she's grown up, she decided to go ahead and find the guy that helped her go through school and all that and her whole childhood. And as soon as she saw him, she recognized him and this and that. So she points a gun at him and wants to shoot him. Also, I forgot to mention that for some reason she took out all the news clippings covering her family's murder and threw them all over the bed and stuff. And she just waits for him to walk in. Super cliche. And we hear a gunshot and we're supposed to believe that she shot him, but we don't. So we cut back to the cabin. They're just sitting down and she asks if he can find out who ordered the hit on her dad and stuff. And then Duncan goes like, maybe. And then so he just gets up and walks outside and has a smoke. And then we end with a drone shot moving away from them to kind of bookend from the beginning. Except there's no shitty CGI bird this time. I don't know, I'm kind of confused by this. I don't know if they were suggesting that there's going to be a sequel where they go after the people that ordered the hit on Vanessa Hudgens' family. These movies have a tendency of doing that. And if this movie's successful, they will. And I guess that concludes the summary of the movie. That's about it. So I jumped over to Metacritic to see if anybody else disliked it. And as expected, it got bashed by critics. But the general audience doesn't care. I think right now the audience score is a 6.4 or something like that last time I checked. And the critic gave it like a 19 overall meta score. So then is it as bad as the critics say it is? Not really, but it's not better by much. If the critics say 19, I say more like a 29, I'd say 30. I'll be generous and say 30. It's mainly just dull and lazy, rather than it being offensively bad. The story itself, I'll go ahead and say that it had potential, but the main problem is the pacing. The film meanders way too much at the beginning for the first third of the movie. The leads don't actually talk to each other until 40 minutes into the film. And then after that, the movie just rushes to get the plot going. And so then we're supposed to believe that these people who've only had like 5 awkward interactions have feelings for each other. In my opinion, what the filmmakers needed to do was cut down the first hour to just 30 minutes. Instead of trying to bullshit us with character development with Duncan and an ineffective romance with Vanessa Hudgens. They could have made it like a kind of like a father-daughter thing. Actually, no. Cut Vanessa Hudgens out of the movie entirely. That would have been better. Really, she's not needed in the movie. She provides an excuse, I guess, in the end for Duncan to go back to Blute's mansion. But honestly, it's kind of a revenge movie. You don't need any other excuse other than, oh, you try to kill me and you don't want to pay me my money. Oh, well, I'm gonna kill you until you stop trying to kill me and pay me my money. That's pretty much all that was needed. I guess having an emotional anchor was supposed to make Duncan like a stronger character, but it doesn't work. You might as well have just played it straight and just gone straight for the revenge killing shit. The villains are cartoony and non-threatening. We actually spend a lot of time with them in the first half of the movie, where they're investigating Duncan's properties and stuff. And I guess this is supposed to establish them as like a force to be reckoned with. But honestly, they just end up looking like incompetent idiots which they are. But if they were supposed to be like such a threat, they did a poor job at establishing that. And then just show how badass Duncan is by just having him kill all of them in less than like 5 minutes. They honestly could have fixed that as well. Instead of just having them like on a separate part of the country and stuff, and then just have a 5-minute altercation with Duncan, they could have made him a threat throughout the whole movie. As the movie progresses, they manage to hurt Duncan a little bit with every encounter they have, but Duncan also manages to kill one of them at a time. So they could have spread it out throughout the whole movie rather than just having a lame ass scene that is not effective at all. The acting is pretty bad as well, and the writing definitely doesn't do them any favors. The actors were either overacting or giving boring performances. I don't know. I like Vanessa and Mads, especially Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's a terrific actor, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say that the director is terrible at directing actors. I'd go as far as to say that the directing is the worst part of the film, with the writing in second place, a very close second. Like I said, more than bad, this movie's just boring and feels lazy. If I had to describe the whole thing, I would say amateurish. Supposedly Jonah Ackerlund has been around for a while, even though he hasn't been a critical darling or whatever. Most directors his age who have been around as long as he has, even if they're not great directors, they at least know how to put a movie together. I haven't seen any of his films, so maybe this was just a fluke. So yeah, it just feels like it was made by some 20-year-old who just got out of a crappy film school. The best part of the movie? Were there any good parts? Cinematography, maybe? For the most part, it was just flat and uninspired, but there wasn't anything that I noticed that was bad with it. None distracting, so I guess the cinematographer did what he got paid to do. So yeah, what would I rate it? I was thinking like a low 3, but the more I think about it, I'll go with a light 2. And I guess that finishes my review for this movie. I guess I talked about most of the things that I wanted to talk about, or at least the things that bothered me the most. Thanks for sticking around this long. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but judging by all the filming I had to do and refilming, it's going to be fairly long, over 10 minutes at least. If you liked my video, go ahead and hit like and subscribe to my channel. If you didn't like my video, hit dislike. And if you didn't like me personally, then just go ahead and still subscribe. Pity subscriptions are more than welcome. So anyway, thank you.